So Dave, you're going to be muted for a second and then unmute yourself.
Got it. Am I?
Now unmute yourself. Silly. Unmute yourself. Oh, your dear one. Okay.
There we go.
All right, cool.
All right. So everything in time and space always has a flaw. It's like I have this biscuit in my packet with no chocolate in the middle. So I just thought that was an aside. But the whole point of our joining, of our coming together, is to expose ourselves as the liars and the frauds and the hypocrites that we are, and through the process of healing, learning to be okay with that, learning that that's just natural state of how things are on earth, right? It's like, as above, so below in eternity. I'm perfect as God created me, as spirit, as formless, as eternal. On earth here, I don't seem to find myself that way, and I can either bust my ass trying to become a better version of myself, which is never going to occur, right? Because what is a better version, really, right? There's always, that involves judgment. Or I can just simply accept that that's never going to occur and that I'm perfectly imperfect. And in that, accept myself with all my lumps, bumps, and faults. Right now, if I'm trying to hide from that, if I'm trying to defend myself against showing everyone and anyone whatever, it's got to be unconditional. If I'm trying to hide from my healing by turning off my camera or by not engaging on a heartfelt level when someone's talking to me and all of this sort of stuff, then all I'm actually doing is trying to hold off healing as it's being offered in favor of what I think I want healing to look like on my own terms. Okay? But you don't get salvation on your own terms. It's offered as it's offered, and you either take it or leave it, right? You're either in or you're out. So Jesus would say you're either hot or you're cold. Don't be wishy-washy. You can't sit on the thing and dip a toe in the water here and see if you like the temperature and then maybe over here, and, you know, it doesn't work like that. You give your total yes, and then you be about the roller coaster ride of, oh my God, this is frightening, right? Because we're on a journey into fear, not away from it. We're here to look at our nonsense. We're here to look at all of our shortcomings, our failures, our errors, our everything, not with the idea of judgment and condemnation, but with the idea of actually taking responsibility for what's going on in our minds and being about the deferral to a divine source, to our divine source for the correction. Okay? If I'm using a spiritual concept as my correction, that's not what correction is. All right? So Donna, if I'm walking around, I know we just went through this, but for everybody else's benefit, I guess, and finger on my nose for my own benefit, if I'm walking around defending myself with a spiritual concept that I've found in the Course, oh, look, it says I'm not a body, I'll just walk around saying to myself, I'm not a body, and my cancer will disappear or whatever it is. It's like, no, of course not. Of course it's not going to disappear. All right? You got to be true to thyself. Right? Jesus is telling you, you're not a body. That doesn't mean that you know what that means. Okay? So let Jesus be right about his dedication in that, or his assertion in that to you, that you're not a body, and then let him also be right that through the application of the means, which is the principles we find in the Course, we can come to know what that is. And through that process of undoing or unlearning and then relearning again, we undergo firstly the transition of our thinking, right? And then because the body is a symbolic representation of our thinking in the first place, which is representing the denial, then the physical nature of healing, which will follow. Okay, it's like that old Gloria Gaynor song, I think, free your mind and the rest will follow. I mean, like, it's a Soul Sister song. You should know that one, Tina. It's like, you gave me the hand. Whatever it is, free your mind and the rest will follow. I can't even do that head thing, you know, but like, I know you can. It's like that, right? But if I'm defending myself in any way, shape or form, with a spiritual concept, with a worldly concept, then I'm not actively engaging. All I'm doing is seeking without the wish to find, okay, without the true purpose. I'm playing spiritual seeker and not actually engaging in the confrontation with my false self that's required for me to be able to undergo that transition moment from the false self to the true self through that holy instant where I offer my illusions about myself to God, okay, for the healing of my mind. You have to be about that. It's like I look in my mirror and all I see is skin and bones and glasses and all this shit. And it's like, this is what I think I am, this avatar, this body. And then as I transition through the workbook, and you got to really take it on board that the workbook, 365 lessons, is the very, very minimal, right? It's a beginning. It says in the course, this course is a beginning, and you go beyond the course. You finish that workbook, and Jesus says you have no further use for lessons now. You're done, and I leave you in the hands of the Holy Spirit, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't mean that all of a sudden the necessity to apply those principles is finished, because you'll find that as you trundle around out in the world there and things show up again and again and again, the natural tendency of most course students particularly is to want to go back and do those lessons again, thinking that they've missed something, or why is my life still shit, right? Rather than apply the principles. Okay? It's like a doctor. If a doctor trained for 7 years, let's say at doctor's college, and they've got all these books, there has to be a point where they get to the end of their training, they get their certificate or their diploma that says you're now a doctor, and those books are put on the shelf and they actually begin their practice. They may occasionally refer to them, but they don't go back to study to be a doctor again. Does that make sense? So, but all of that in the undoing process, I have to be present. I have to be open. I have to allow myself to be completely vulnerable to my pain, to my suffering, to my denial, because this is the removal of the blocks that I, finger on my nose, put in place between me and God. Okay? This is a removal of the blocks that I thought would be a good idea, so that I didn't have to look at that moment, that tiny moment of sheer terror where I thought that time came to take the place of eternity. Is that clear? Is there any question on there? So when we have these meetings, when we have our Zoom meetings, it's like, man, I want to be as open as possible. If I have falsity and if I have fear and if I have all these things hiding in my mind somewhere, it's like the ego is going to be like, well, we don't want anyone else in this meeting to know because we're all supposed to be spiritual and lovely and nice to each other. And it's like, well, no, we're not. There's no such thing as reciprocal relationships. Like, this meeting is the biggest bunch of assholes on the planet. And I mean that with all the love in the universe. That's self-admission. It's, you know, you go to AA, it's like you've got to be able to admit you're an alcoholic before you can do the program. If you can't admit you're not an alcoholic, then go back out in the world, keep drinking until finally you realize how done with that you are, that you actually do come to the point where you can admit it to yourself. You know, the course is no different in that. I need to admit to myself, and to be able to admit to myself, I need help. I've been doing it my own way all these years, getting no result other than more of my own way, which I don't like because it doesn't bring me any happiness. I need help. You don't go to a doctor and ask them for a prescription on your own terms. They diagnose you and they say, take these pills, do this, whatever exercise. And if you don't do that, you can't go back and blame the doctor. You know? So it's like Jesus is saying, do these lessons, apply them to the situations that show up in your life, right? Don't try to jump ahead to the end where it says you're whole and perfect and one with the Christ and everything. Just for the moment where you find yourself in the pain, the suffering, and the death, be there totally, right? You're in it anyway. You're in the middle of your own disaster anyway. Just admit it. No, I'm all fucked up. I need help. All right. Now I'm going to stay there. I'm going to stay in that place until the help arrives, right? Because Jesus is telling me I'm entitled to it. I'm entitled to miracles. All I need to do is ask. How simple, you know, how simple can it get? But the caveat to that is, and I know we were talking, Tina, about there's no caveats in salvation, and in the sense there isn't, but there is one caveat, right? That asking has to be a true asking, okay? And this is where our exposure comes in. I'm here asking for healing. I'm here asking for help, but my ego always has its little agenda. It always has its own 2 cents worth. And, you know, like, I don't know about any of the guys in this group, maybe we're all sort of matured up a little bit, but sometimes you try to make a bargain with God. I'll stop smoking, God, if you know. So there's always these little things in the background, right? I'm saying a prayer. I've got this intolerable situation going on in my life with my relationships, with my mental health, my physical health, whatever the hell, doesn't really matter. And I put my hands together in prayer. I go into my room and close my door. And my Father, who sees in private, answers me openly. But my prayers are always going to be rooted in denial. It's only in denial that I would ask for anything, right? In reality, in truth, I have no need of anything. I am whole and perfect as God created me. But that's not where I find myself now. So I need to be honest. I need to be open. It's like, here I am, Lord. I'm a liar. I'm full of shit. I'm completely screwed up. I don't know. I can't manage my life. It's like, I want a miracle and I don't care what it looks like, right? If you still care what the miracle looks like or the healing, how that's going to occur and what you might lose or what you might have to go through and all of this stuff, then you don't really want it as it's given. Sometimes you're going to have moments of healing in this where you don't even realize that the healing has occurred until some kind of situation comes around again to show you that you're actually responding to it differently, you know? And you'll be like, wow, that would have really pissed me off at one point in time. And now I just realized that, you know, something's changed. How did that happen? It's a miracle, right? And then sometimes the healing is going to look like this all-out confrontation and horrific bloody, you know, but you have the power and the presence within you to go through it no matter what it looks like. Okay, but because that ego mind that lives in the asking is always future and past oriented, it's always projecting into the future the possibilities and the potential of what could go wrong, right, in a divine healing, right? Oh, I want a miraculous healing, but I don't want it to look like this, or I want it to look like that. And I'm willing to forgive myself for my part in this drama, but not that other person. So they have to forgive first. And all this sort of nonsense, you know, like the stories and the mind games that we play with ourselves. Eventually you just get to the bit and you go, I just want peace and I don't care what it looks like. I'm willing to do anything, right? I'm going to turn my camera on. Susan's disappeared again. I'm going to be completely present and open with my mugshot of a whatever the hell you want to call this thing, and allow whatever I go through for me to go through, regardless if anyone sees me or if nobody sees me. But in this particular forum, and if you go to like I'm sure you guys all have like meditation centers and whatever near you, or places you can go, and there's groups of people going through therapy and whatever. That's total exposure. You don't get out of it. You can't put a paper bag over your head and then tell your story. It's like, here I am. And the recognition then that you're not special, you're not different from anyone else telling their story, relieves you of the anxiety that you feel about having to expose yourself, because you see everyone else doing it, right? It's actually a support mechanism. It's actually a joining where we come together for a second in the acceptance and the admission that we're failures at life. Right? I've got 365 lessons designed to tell me what I am. How can that be? How can that tell me that I'm a success at things? I don't even know what the hell I am. There are people out there making billions of dollars, and me, I'm just trying to work out what the hell, you know, from one day to the next. It's like, it's because you're not from here. I'm not from here, and this is not my home, and everything that I try to do here is always going to end up in a pile of shit, because what I have as a true reference in me is something that we'll start off by calling the call to awaken, which is constantly drawing me in one direction. And then my ego, which is constantly getting me to look out there in another direction, and me having to make the choice all the time between the two. So having the ability to have 365 lessons to tell me, firstly, that that's what I'm doing in my mind. I'm flip-flopping between the world and God, right? And then the ability to apply those lessons when I see that I'm flip-flopping, right? That's a good thing. To the ego, it's going to be embarrassing, right? To the ego, it's going to be seen as an affront to its integrity and everything, because the ego, when you listen to that ego voice, it likes to tell you that you got this. You're mature now. You're a grown person, and you can meet the world on equal terms. And it's like, it takes a lot of integrity and honesty to actually admit to yourself, no, I can't. You know, and everyone out there who's making billions of dollars today, in their next incarnation, is going to be sitting in this Zoom room with one of you guys or me or whoever the hell, showing up as Christ mind made manifest as a teacher of God or whatever, to come to the conclusion that they have no clue what's going on for them either, right? It doesn't matter how much money you've got. It doesn't matter how many people think you're awesome. It doesn't matter any of that stuff. All that matters is that I'm open to my healing, because that's why we're joining here. That's what we're together for, right? We're not here for other purposes. This is our sacred room. This is our sacred space, our opportunity to step in totally, be completely vulnerable and open, and allow something else to occur, some miraculous intercession to occur that takes us beyond our ideas of ourselves into an experience, hopefully. And I know that sounds like a mouthful, but really it's just a decision. It's just an action of mind where I suddenly choose not for what I'm familiar with, right? I'm going to choose for the unknown. I don't even know how to make that choice, really, because my mind is still going to try to tell me what I think the unknown might be. But it's unknown because I don't know about it, right? Now, somewhere in my mind, I do know, all right? But I've chosen to put all these blocks in place and obliterate my memory of God from my own awareness so that I can feel safe in my own little world. And my ego that I've designed to be my guide for my journey in my own little world has suddenly turned on me and is not giving me good advice, right? It's got its own interests at heart, which is self-preservation, which in the light of what's offered through salvation is something that I no longer have any time for, all right? Because time is always against me. And I'm not concerned whether my ego thinks this is a good idea or a bad idea, or that voice in my head tells me that I should be making better choices or whatever. I'm deferring all my choices now to God, all of them. I'm not trying to work it out, which is the best way to go out of this avenue or that avenue. It's like I get to the fork in the road and it's like, I don't know which way to take. I just don't want to take the way I've been going so far. And I'm going to leave it to God. Now, when you leave it to God, you're going to get guidance, right? If you're honest, if you really mean it, right? But the course, that especially the first half of the workbook of the course, it exposes to me my nonsense where I don't really mean it. And that's my salvation. Because unless I can see my mind at work, where it's working against my best interests, I'm not going to realize when the opportunity to make a better choice shows up. I'm going to miss it. Okay. Now, every relationship has these opportunities. My relationship with the air I breathe, my relationship with the people in my life, the situations that occur, every single relationship I find myself consciously engaged in is an opportunity to choose again. The air I breathe isn't air I breathe. I'm not even here. I'm not in this body. The illusion, the Maya, convinces me that I'm a body, that I'm going to die and all of this sort of stuff. But I am spirit, and I only have my faith until I have an experience. I only have my faith to buoy me up through that whole passage. Okay. So in a sense, I'm denying the world in its entirety. I'm denying the meaning that I've given absolutely everything for a second. And I'm allowing for something else to occur in my consciousness that is not of my own making, because I'm sick and tired of eating my own food. I want manna. Got it? Does that make sense? And I'm entitled to it. You guys are entitled to it. You're a child of God. Okay? I think it was Nelson Mandela said, who are you to play small? Your playing small doesn't serve the world. Stand up, shine your light, represent, even if you don't know what that is, right? Because it's only when you're willing to stand up, you can be shown. And a lot of people will tell me, oh, I'll believe it when I see it. But you'll see it when you believe it. And you're not going to believe it until you actually make the effort to activate yourself, get up off your ass and represent Jesus Christ, or represent Buddha or Krishna, whoever it is that you have in your life, in your heart and soul connection as a non-temporal entity. All right? You cannot use a temporal entity. You cannot use me. I mean, in a certain regard, to a certain point, yes. But all teachers, all earthly teachers are temporary. All right? At a certain point, you guys are going to be like, oh, I've heard this guy talk about this shit for ages. I'm done with it. And I'll go on and you'll be off to, and that's, man, that is my prayer. All right. The last thing I want is to be here in 5 years' time and see the same familiar faces staring at me, the screen, nodding in agreement. And, you know, it's like, I love you guys, but like, let's be about this. All right. So it's funny. My purpose is to make myself redundant. But for now, so is Mari here? No. Oh, there. There she is. She's right next to me.
Marie?
Mari, I didn't know that Neil had left his body. That's crazy. Or maybe I did know and I forgot. I don't know, but I was just talking to Tina about him this morning, and I went to write him a message and I saw your little thing. That's bizarre. It's like a whole bunch of guys. Like
he and Teddy. I mean, I'm not going to take up this time here. Or maybe another time I'll tell you. But
no, yeah.
From my experience, there was a parallel in brotherhood. I can't explain it, but it was really beautiful with both of them. Yeah.
I got that this morning when I clicked on his page, because Tina said to me something about she invited Neil or somebody to join, and there was an issue with that because we had to delete him from the page or something. And I thought, I wonder why that is, because I've always got on really well with Neil, and we've always had this kind of back and forth. And then I went on there and saw your post saying that he's left his vessel, you know, and he's gone. And I'm like, what? You know, like, and it all sort of fell into line. There was him, there was Ted, there's a whole bunch of guys, Nick Nakthan and all those other bloody, you know, it's like a whole Ray association has just like vibrated together perfectly in the idea of healing and gone, which is what this teaching is. You know,
never gone. I wasn't never. You know why? No, you know why I say that so fast is because Neil and I spend it's me. It was me in my exposure and uncovering. I've had a big life, lots of people, you know, and we would talk. Neil never, I don't know if he ever, in all the years I knew him, ever said he missed someone. He really got that experience when Jesus says, I'm always with you. Yeah. And you know what I'm saying? And that was, that's what I experienced.
Yeah.
I haven't grieved him. What I'm dealing with but it is still there in what you're talking about, is that, okay, so after this period of just being acceptance and quiet and being alone, all of a sudden, how do I fix this? How do I fix that? All of these things that Neil just naturally did, you know?
Right.
And then I realized my world was really small, right? I woke up one day and said, I have friends all around the world. I have no friends.
Yeah.
Who do I go ask for this or that? And the process you're talking about, that's all I can do is fall.
Exactly.
That's all I can do is I have a little thing. I call it recognize, release, allow. That's the way I tell myself the 3 steps that you were talking about is look at it. I'm screwed. I can't do any of this. That's how I feel. I'm scared. Like, what did I do when I lived alone before? Well, I knew a lot more people. Wait a minute, I've never been here. This is terrifying, and it's never lasted all days, but it's been common. I haven't had this kind of fear, this intensity of fear in years, right? And I said, okay, fine, bring it on, right? And then the release is I can't fix it. Hello, I can't fix it. Remember, I can't fix it. I can't do this. That opens my door to come into true prayer. And I have, and I love what you said about, I forgot what you said, but it was the focus on the prayer itself. So I stopped praying for people. You know, when people say, pray for me this, pray for that. Years ago, long before my experience with A Course in Miracles, I'm a 12-stepper in another life. And I heard something in the literature and it says, how do you know if they're supposed to get well from sick? How do you know what their highest good is and all of this? So I just dropped it right there. I said, that makes so much sense to me. And I realized that it really brings us to like the pureness of heart and the absolute, I call it the naked space, the clean slate with put in it's like unconditional to love towards your brother is ideal, right? But it's in your prayer for correction. You want to come that unconditional too. I call it take your muddy paws off the whole damn thing. Yeah, and I have very simple prayers. Like I still say, and even though I've had the experience of knowing who and what I am, that I'm internal and stuff like that, it can never ever harm you to say, I do not know who I am and what I'm doing. It can only open up your space to be available, your mind, your heart, for the correction. Because you're coming with a total, I don't know, state of mind. So that's one I say. Other times I say, if I said it recently, and it is a course, well, the course says, I think towards the end of the text, it starts to talk about the witnesses, right? So I know that I need a whole new network. So I'm not going to figure out who that is. I actually have started going around exposing myself to people who aren't in A Course in Miracles and just saying, you know what, my husband just died and I realized I don't have a network. I said, I get along with everybody. I said, but I really don't have a network. So my whole life has to be regrown. I just started saying it in public. I just got a lady's phone number, a stranger at the gas station. You know what I'm saying? So I love what you're sharing. Thank you. Thank you. I have this little thing in my mind. I can't explain it. Maybe it looks like the infinity symbol, but it's like that recognize, it's like the ego, because the Course calls it wrong mind, which I see as left, right? So it's like it, but then there's that meeting point, and it's like learning how so many, if you're here, you have a vision of the you have a glimpse of the real world, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You have a sense, right? But it's right in that middle, learning how to let go. Maybe it's easier said, let go and let God, but to let it be given. And sometimes it's so exquisite, I want to call it magical, but it's not magical at all. It's natural. It is. It's not magic. That's right. But you know what I'm saying? It's like a little kid. I say, oh, it always feels so beautiful every time. Like, oh, thank you. It's just, right. So I'll shut up. I'm sorry.
All good. All good. So I want to offer you something there.
Uh-huh.
Do with it as you will. When you were talking about prayer, it's like you're at a place now where in your own mind, having already glimpsed reality, your only prayer need be thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, when your only prayer is thank you, it's going to bring up whatever residue that you have left in denial of that prayer, right? It's much quicker than going back into the I don't know what I am, because then that opens the door to ego again in a way where...
Understand.
Right, yeah. Got it?
It's efficient. And actually, I know the principle from another place, an old woman years ago.
Right.
What she said about affirmations, right? I was a young woman, 30, and I was picking up books from the thrift store, all kinds of stuff. And she said, the problem with affirmations is that what blocks you and it is going to rise up. And you just said the exact same thing with thank you. There's an efficiency there, what you're saying now I'm ready for. Thank you.
Whatever's false is just going to be right there in your face, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Thank you.
Which is why we're here. So all or nothing. All right. And I like the example of Jesus on the road to, I can't remember if it was Galilee or whatever, but on the road, and he passed the merchant. This is one of my favorite little biblical things. And he passed the merchant with his cart loaded up with all his goods, going to the market to sell it. And Jesus said to him, and I want to talk about the disciples too today, because this is really cool, right? But Jesus said to him, give up the world and follow me. Right? Now that's a literal giving up the world, giving up, not just conceptually as in the meaning that I've given the world. Jesus is presenting that teaching, that parable, as a total offering to me, right? Keeping my finger on my nose, and to the merchant at the time. And the merchant says to him, let me just go and sell my goods in the marketplace, Lord, and then I will gladly follow you, right? Which is the hesitation. Every single one of us, me included, has that hesitation. If I said to you, give up the world and follow me, or if God spoke to you from the sky, let's say, and said, it's time to go, your mind is automatically going to think of the next thing that you think you've got to get done before you can go. My kids, my job, my home, I better turn the gas off, whatever, right? But it's literally in that yes, without any consideration for anything else. So in this all or nothing, in this activate myself, in this total give and receive that this Zoom meeting represents, Jesus is saying, give up the world and follow me. And I'm here saying yes. Right now, if your yes isn't total, that's not a bad thing. It just means that you can see that your yes isn't total. It means that you have work to do. All right, there's healing required, because you haven't yet seen that no matter what the world presents to you, no matter what the scenario, family, friends, children, all of that sort of stuff, it all ends in death. Okay, which is pointless. It ends in death for you, for your kids, for their kids, for their kids. And what is the point of flogging your guts out, working at a job you probably don't even like for 80, 90 years, paying taxes, putting up with all the bullshit, just to die at the end and have to pop up again and do it all over again because you failed to learn the lesson presented in the first place, right? And the lesson presented always is going to be that there is no world, right? The world as it is, that it seems to be around me, and physical nature of things and everything, is only ever going to be the symbolic representation of my own thinking, in a way that I can be able to acknowledge it, process it, and as you said, Mari, let go of it. All right. But that's got to be my constant recognition. So when people these days, like, you see a lot of stuff about, you know, people post these little spiritual memes, and some of them are kind of on the money and some of them are like a bit not. And there's one I've noticed lately that's popping up, and it's like a cultural thing. You know, the culture changes, and, you know, the new kids on the block put their spin on everything, even though there's nothing new under the sun. It's the same stuff. But people are saying, oh, you have to be a conscious person, right? Which basically is being aware of your own footprint, being aware of your own state of mind in any given situation, which is what Jesus is talking about in the Course, being aware of the kingdom of heaven, right? And also vigilant for anything that you allow to tempt you to draw out of that, to drag you out of that state of mind. You know, so all of these things that are being presented again and again and again and again and again in every single situation. It's not just in a Zoom meeting. It's not just in when we get together in a course group and we sit down and we study the principles together. It's actually living side by side, parallel to the old script that we chose when we came seemingly into this experience of separation, waiting for us to choose for it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 weeks a year, or whatever the hell, I don't even know time anymore, but it's there all the time, right? God is constantly calling upon our own forgiveness to save me, right? Or my forgiveness to save me. So in this moment, okay, even though on the temporal level, we seem to be engaged in a meeting, in a Zoom meeting, okay, I'm not fooled by that. I'm presenting a demonstration of my certainty of the fact that I am whole and perfect as God created me through an experience that I've had. And you guys, it's like I had a guy this morning called me a dickhead. Someone I don't even know. They sent me a picture of my profile picture with the word dickhead that they'd written above it and sent it to me as an inbox message, you know, and I opened it. It was one of those ones that's blurred out and it says, click here to see the image. And it was just a picture of my smiling face with the word dickhead. And I'm like, this guy knows me pretty well. It's like, what else, you know, what else? But literally everything is offering me that opportunity to include in all of my falsity, to reclaim and re-own all of my denial. Now, even in this meeting, so when we're looking for our blocks, right? So Jesus is saying you have to search for your blocks and find them. It's not like you can look into your mind and think, oh, there's the block about the body being valuable. You'll get glimpses of it, okay, where you perceive that you've given a value to this and that and the other, but you're not going to see that value as relative to your position in the healing of it until you understand how it is that you've given it a value in the first place. And why, more importantly, why, and what that value represents actually. Because otherwise, all you're going to think is on the one level, right? And this is where level confusion comes in. All you're going to be thinking about is the one level where, and if we use the body as one of the blocks, which is the second block, right? The belief that the body is valuable for what it can offer. And of course, we're in this physical, like my physical eyes see everything. And it's like there's a advertisement for women's lingerie. And of course, being a red-blooded human being, I look at that and I go, oh, that's interesting. But to what level, to what degree, and why do I think that's interesting, right? If my purpose is truly salvation, right? But it doesn't mean I don't get sidetracked by it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't represent my block. It's easy to fob it off. But you can use anything as the tip of an iceberg, okay? It doesn't matter whether you like it or don't like it. It doesn't matter whether you think it's great or terrible, all right? The fact that I have an opinion about it either way shows me that I'm still externally oriented and not living truly from what it is that I am as myself, my spirit, right? And so even in these meetings, you guys are going to be listening to what I'm telling you and juxtapositioning it back against where it is you think you're at in your own awakening and what's going on for you. And some of you are going to be nodding in agreement. Some of you are going to be like, I don't really know what you mean by that and whatever. And some of you are going to think I'm a dickhead and all of these things, right? Which I'm not concerned about. All I'm concerned about is that we are completely open. That when we step into our healing circle, we do it wholeheartedly. We do it without reservation, without trying to hide anything, right? I'm all the dunce, stupid, whatever, all of that. We never like to admit that stuff about ourselves. You know, for some reason, when we get to the idea of being spiritual, and it's like there's a place, I was going to say down the road, but it's like 3,000 kilometers from here. Australia's a big continent, right? So down called Nan Tien Temple. And it's a Buddhist temple. It's the biggest one in the Southern Hemisphere. It's got 8 tiers on the roof, and it's got stupas everywhere, and the whole, like, it's beautiful as far as the temple goes, but the attitude there really sucks, right? It's not an open attitude like we have here, where we can admit that we're all full of shit and now we need help. It's like, I went there once and asked for, and I'm just using this as a background, but I went there once and asked for a bed for the night because I was in the middle of my transformation. I was on a kind of a short little pilgrimage, and I just naturally turned up there, being attracted by the temple that I could see in the distance. And I thought, these guys are going to give me a bed for the night and a thing. And they wouldn't, because I wasn't a Buddhist. They asked me, are you a Buddhist? And I said, no, I'm on a journey and I don't know what I am. That was basically where it was. And they just slammed the gate in my face. And it's like, at that time, I didn't have stuff that I could use, you know, to deal with how I felt about that. But it showed me that even people who are supposed to be compassionate and all of this stuff, it's all false. It's not really, it's just a facade. And the ego's, the highest facade or the highest identity the ego can attain is the spiritual one. Okay? It can't go beyond that because its domain is time and space. And beyond the spiritual facade, which gets really sticky and ugly, is truth. Okay? But the ego wants to limit you to the idea of being, let's say, a student or a healer or a teacher or any of that stuff. You're none of that. That's part of a transitory phase in the journey of your soul that you're going through now in order to get to the remembrance of what you are in truth, which is spirit, right? Which is eternal, right? So be very, very, I'll say conscious, right? Because that's what everyone's about these days, being a conscious person. Be very aware, be very conscious that it's easy to defend yourself with a spiritual concept. And having done it many, many, many times, much to the disappointment of my teachers, I expect, I'm a slow learner, I know full well how it is that I can defend myself against what's being presented by trying to be spiritual, okay? So Donna, like we were talking about before with healing, forget that I'm not a body. For you, forget you're not a body. Totally be a body. Totally be vulnerable. Totally be a corpse, a living corpse, ready to die. Here I go, right? Because it's only in that place you can get to the bottom. If you're trying to hold yourself in some spiritual context, that may be the truth of you, but it's not where you're at, right? Your body's going through stuff or whatever. That can't be any clearer an indication that there's something out of alignment up here, okay? Now, it's not that it's necessarily out of alignment, because there are many times where you'll go through things. If you ever have done any metaphysical work, like in relationship with a group or read books or whatever, you'll know that sometimes your body just goes through stuff automatically and at random, that the temptation is to want to call it a sickness or there's something wrong with this. But remember that the Holy Spirit's purpose is healing, and that's the only purpose he has, and therefore that's the only true purpose there is. If you're in alignment with that purpose, if you've invited the Holy Spirit in, why would you doubt that in you? Right? You would only doubt that in you if you hadn't truly invited the Holy Spirit in. Therefore, look at everything that happens to you occurring through even the vessel as an idea of healing. Right? So it's like we get a cold, right? So the ego says, oh, it's a cold, you need vitamin C, you need tissues, you need whatever it is, bed rest, chicken soup, all the rest of it, right? The Holy Spirit's like, stop adjusting. Stop making it something wrong and start to see that your body's undergoing a realignment process, because the Holy Spirit, I'm doing something in your mind, right? Of course it's going to play out through the body. Of course you're going to take notice of it and think that there's something going on here. But all that's going on is the activity of the Holy Spirit, because you invited it in. It's doing what it needs to do on your say-so and with your permission. All right? Ye of little faith. And I'm keeping my finger there because I've doubted it many times. All right? I've gone to the cupboard, I've got the Panadol, and I've tucked myself into bed many times, and oh no, I must be in denial of something. It's like, why would I want to see it that way? Why wouldn't I want to see it that I've invited the Holy Spirit in to heal my thought process in its entirety, which is going to play out through my body, because as my mind is healed, so my body will follow, because the body's a construct of the mind. Why would I expect to go through that without experiencing any kind of what we might want to classify as symptomatic results, right? Let it be miraculous. Let it be miraculous. By your faith alone are you healed. Now that's where the rubber's going to hit the road. I'm either going to allow the Holy Spirit to be active in me because I'm active in abiding with him, or I'm going to see a problem that I've got to somehow fix and pray for, right? But Jesus is telling me the highest form of prayer is thank you, right? No matter what seems to be showing up, right? Jesus has got you. The fix is in. You can't fuck this up. You can't get it wrong, right? What is there to worry about? What is there to be concerned about? Oh, look, I've got a rash, or oh, look, I've got bumps, or I've got bone marrow cancer, or I've got whatever. What are you worried about? You know, like literally. It's like, I'm not a body. That's the story I'm telling myself, and I'm working my way towards the experience and the remembrance of that in my own mind. And everything, literally everything, there's nothing left out. Not one little pebble over, unturned. Everything is included, whether I have a runny nose or a cancer or my bone joints seem to be whatever. Everything comes under the annex of healing. Absolutely everything. When I'm grateful for absolutely everything, I'm in the flow of that healing energy. And whether I have to then go and get a Band-Aid or a tissue or a pill or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? I'm simply following instruction. If I have to go and see a doctor, I'm in the hospital and he says, you got cancer, you need to do this, that, or the other, my guidance will be whatever it is regarding that, under the trust and the faith that the Holy Spirit speaks to me through everyone. In every situation, it's either that or there's God and something else, which is what separation is. Okay? Either everything is God, as above, so below, or there's God according to what I think God is, and then there's other people that are not of God, and maybe I shouldn't listen to them, right? The Holy Spirit will speak to me through everything, through my doctor, my dentist, through the kid in the playground, through the woman in the corner store. And although my individual transformation will be exactly that, individual, nothing is left out of it, right? God's plan is perfect. At some point, I'm going to lay this flesh and bones aside anyway. You know, it's like Ted laid his body aside under the premise or through the idea that he had ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, and Ramana Maharshi laid his vessel aside under the premise or the idea that he had bone cancer or whatever it was in his arm, and it went up and through his lymph nodes and everything. It does not matter, right? Whether you seem to be sick, whether you seem to be healthy, you're not a body. My only purpose is to bring myself to a place where whether I seem to be sick or seem to be healthy doesn't worry me. Doesn't worry me at all. It doesn't affect my state of inner peace because I'm no longer associating with an outcome on the physical plane, whether a personal one or one for anyone else. Okay? Which is why praying for others is, what's the point of that? There's no one else to pray for. Just super glue your finger to your nose. Does that make sense? It's like there is nothing that is not the activity of the Holy Spirit, including this right now. And we're all sitting here. Donna, you're raising your hand.
What about the Buddhists in that fancy big temple?
What about the Buddhists? I was just using that as a story, right? We're in a transition.
But how are they like, how is the Holy Spirit? I get confused because
they believe in the Holy Spirit.
What's their connection to the Holy Spirit? obviously they're perfect, whole, and complete also.
You would have to ask them about that, but it's like you could only answer that in relationship to the meaning that you've given them. You know, for me, it was very helpful. For me, I could see that just because somebody was presenting themselves a certain way doesn't mean that my expectations about that ought to be met. You know, it just shows me that every condition on the physical plane is false. It doesn't matter how spiritual I want to get nice. Man, I used to live in Byron Bay. I don't know if you guys have an equivalent of that in America. Byron Bay is a place where graduates from the big, so Brisbane, which is our biggest city in our state, is like 2 hours up the road from Byron Bay. And you'd get all these 20-somethings at the end of every year that would finish university and think, oh my God, I'm done with my education. I'm going to put on some beads and a sarong and go and live on the beach in Byron Bay and be spiritual, right? That, and every year there'd be like a whole new bunch of kids in combi vans and the whole thing. And it's all a facade, right? We're spiritual. You can't call us thing. You shouldn't judge us. You know, we're all supposed to love each other. And it's like, that's like the, what is it? The wolf in sheep's clothing. It's like, you've got to do the work. Jesus would say, you polish the outside of the cup and don't clean the inside, you know? So Buddhism and religious determination, I'm not saying everybody, but all of that religiosity and stuff is really a covering. It's like most people, if you go to a temple and you talk to the novices, you know, and the new monks and all of that sort of stuff. And I have a really cool story about when I was in Thailand. I went to one of the big wats over there, which is their word for temple. But if you talk to the new guys, most of them are still in that honeymoon period with the idea of what they think they're about, right? It's not until you get a few years in and you realize how tough it is and how hard the work is, and, you know, and you actually put yourself into it, that you start to have more respect and reverence for the hardships and the paths of others that come to you, right? There's always this kind of ego arrogance at the beginning, and that's with everything in life, which is why you have to learn how to be vigilant for the kingdom of heaven within yourself, right? Otherwise, you will adopt a spiritual concept as a defense, and the next thing you know, you'll have 365 days of possible learning gone by, and it's like, oh, I'm not a body. I'm not a body. I'm cool. I got this, and miss all those opportunities to actually have an experience. Get it? So I had this funny, I'll tell you the story because it's kind of funny. I can't speak Thai, right? So in Thailand, in Phuket, they have this guy that's supposedly 120 years old. He's one of the oldest monks, right? He spends his life meditating and think. I wanted to meet this guy, right? I'm like, I'm sure I can connect with this guy on some level, whatever. So I get this little tuk-tuk thing and we go up into the mountain behind the temple where apparently he lives. And there is this gong, like literally this massive, it's the size of a roller door on a garage, you know, like it's huge. And it's out the front of his house. And even the big hammer that you hit the gong with is so heavy, right? It's this big leather thing and it's sodden from rain. It just hangs by the side of this massive gong that when you try to pick it up, it almost breaks your wrists and you have to have this feeble attempt at hitting this gong, right? So there's a little sign written in Thai, and I think from memory, there might've been an English translation, whatever. This is the home of the revered spiritual teacher, blah, 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 whatever his name was. And so anyway, we arrived in this tuk-tuk and I said to the tuk-tuk driver, should I hit the gong? You know, I didn't want to be disrespectful. The guy's 120, he might be having an afternoon nap, you know, and I'm looking at this gong thinking, this is going to wake the dead if I hit this thing. You know, maybe I should just go and knock at the door. And he goes, no, gong, you know. And anyway, so I went up and I hit the gong, like boom, give it a good solid whack. And this thing was so loud, it reverberated out over the hills and like you could just hear it from miles away. And nobody came out for a while, you know, it's like, oh, someone else is hitting the gong. And they came out, some young guy came out, took one look at me, decided I was some kind of tourist that just was hitting the gong for a photo opportunity or something, and went back in and just completely ignored me. And so I thought, okay, I get it. you know, I'm a tourist. They don't know who I am, whatever. I was there with a sincere desire to talk to this guy, and, you know, and, but I thought we'll just go back to the temple and I'll talk to the lay monks and I'll see if I can get an introduction. Right now, the lay monks sit in the back abbey or whatever, or the vestibule of the temple, and the peasants and the poor people and the common people come along in the mornings and offer their prayers and usually put a donation, and the monk says a prayer for them, right? So I'm in the queue, right? There's about 12 people in front of me, all these Thai people, and I'm like 6'2", and there's this whole thing, and I'm a head and shoulders above everybody, and I'm in this queue, and there's this guy in robes sitting up on a little podium thing, and he was writing down stuff. Like, the people would come along, he was writing down stuff, and he put it in this little box, which I guess was the prayer box, and the box would be blessed by whoever. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, it wasn't, I completely forgot about the old guy. One of the things I wanted to talk about was the rubbish on the beach in Phuket, right? You couldn't swim in the ocean. There's plastic bags and packets of lollies and whatever. Like, it's disgusting. The beach is covered in litter. And there are people all over the beach. But the monks are held in very high regard in Thailand. I think it's the firstborn son out of every family has to become a monk by the king's decree, right? You have to be. And so monks are everywhere with their begging bowls and whatever. And I realized that there was going to be this communication problem. And so prior to going along, because I'm a bit of an artist, I'd drawn some pictures to try and bridge the language gap of what I was concerned about. And one of those pictures was monks on the beach picking up the rubbish, right? And so I got to the front of the queue. I was the last one, actually. I got to the front of the queue, and I gave him the piece of paper, and he really, he totally looked at it, right? I was expecting to be fobbed off, whatever. He totally looked at it. He studied it, and he pointed to one of the monks on the beach on my picture, and he goes, pointed to himself, me, you know, like this. And I'm like, yeah. And we had this whole moment of him seeing that he had to pick up rubbish, that I was asking him if he could go and pick up the rubbish on the beach, because if the monks would do it, then all the people that had their businesses on the beach would be so confronted by the fact that their revered symbols were doing their dirty work that they might take an interest in it for doing it for themselves, so the monks weren't, you know. That was my thinking way back then. But everything was being presented as that opportunity of healing. And even though I didn't get to meet the old 120-year-old guy, like, that monk gave me a little mud, like a stamp. They have these things that stamp with a picture of the old guy on it, and I still have it somewhere. And that connection, I felt it, right? I felt that connection between me and that other monk, and I had to give him 100 baht or whatever it is for a tuk-tuk ride over to the beach so as he could pick up the rubbish. And he took the money, so who knows what the hell. But it can look like anything, right? And I can't remember now why I'm telling you that story, but it was just a funny little aside. But like, there's healing in everything. It doesn't have to look a specific way, but I guess, you know, I'm trying to get the point across that don't try to decide what you think healing ought to look like, right? Because it's about the joining, it's about the connection. And this whole thing that we've got going on here is a joining and a connection, all right? Don't get caught up in the idea that being spiritual is something special. I'm a servant to mankind. That monk in that temple realized his relationship with me as a servant to mankind, right? Because the perspective I take on board is that I'm responsible for my brother's suffering. If I see suffering, it's in me. I'm projecting it out there onto the world, getting the results of that by having others play out that part for me that I call suffering, that I call sickness, when in fact no such thing exists. There is only the activity of God. When I fall into that activity of God in my own association, those things cease to appear up on the timeline of my experience of myself, and I no longer suffer from it myself. Does that make sense? But that has to occur through forgiveness, right? So, all right. So there's two roads.
Hey, Dave.
Right, you get it. I either see through the eyes of love or the eyes of fear, but it's me that chooses. All right. Literally everything is healing. Everything that is going on is healing. There is nothing. When you're in an argument, the next time when you go to the office and somebody's pissing you off and the whole thing, think of it. This is healing. All right. You may not want to recognize it as that, and you may actively resist it, but it doesn't mean that it's not healing. It just means you want healing to look like something else. Okay.
Hey, Dave.
Oh, there's Lisa. Hey.
Hey, I think Safwan had a question.
Oh, good. Where is he? Oh, there he is. Hey.
Hi. Hello. Big fan.
Big fan.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask a question, which is why I raised my hand. I'll just get to the point. So recently I've been trying to just listen, close my eyes. You know, Annie, she's Annie Lively.
Yep.
She's very cool. And we had a great discussion one time. I was, to give you context, I was tripping on shrooms and I was talking to her, right? And she showed me this video about like it's just a, yeah, you too, right? So it was the video was called "It's Just a Ride." And it talks about how like people have been on the ride for a long time.
I have the T-shirt.
Oh, you have it too, right? It says so. Like the basic. I got to a point at the end while on shrooms when I was like, so I've been on the ride for a long time, and I wanted to actually dedicate myself to actually get off the ride. You know, so I decided to do whatever I can, no matter how fearful I am, to not try to avoid the ride, not try to act like a spiritual douchebag and think, oh, I'm better than everybody, but to actually just go through the motions of whatever my particular script entails. So I decided I'll try to listen to the Holy Spirit and see what to do. My main question is, because I've been trying to listen to him the whole day, and he tells me to go do this, and I want to know, sometimes I can like feel when it's his voice, and sometimes I know when it's his ego's voice, but like, how do I know which voice I'm actually listening to, if it's my own ego or actually his voice? You know, because after I do his work, sometimes, and I'll give you an example. He told me to go outside have a smoke, and I met this cool guy, offered him a cigarette, and he's interested in the business that I do. And I guess that's something a benefit, but I don't know, like, how do I know I'm hearing his voice? That's my question. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so you ready?
Oh yeah.
That voice in your head that's asking the question, how do I know? That's not the part of you that is ever going to know. Can you hear me?
What do you
mean? How do I know is the denial. All right. Your training, I'm assuming you're training through the mind training of the course to let go of that questioning, that denial voice, and to stay in the openness to be shown. If you're asking, how do I know which is the right voice to listen to? That's because you're still trying to arbitrate what you think that voice ought to sound like or tell you or whatever. All right. Now, I just literally just a few minutes ago said everything is the activity of the Holy Spirit. You're either going to trust that in its entirety or not at all, because this is all or nothing, right? I'm going to trust that and I'll tell you a little story, right? I think I've told these guys about the 12th car, right? But I live literally, and I don't always, right? I got to own up to it here, but I don't always. But sometimes I'll be like busy or frustrated or whatever's going on, and it's like today we were at Bunny's and I had to get back here by 12, and it's like 11:45, and I don't have a watch, you know, and I'm like, I've got to get here. But everything's going to be the activity of the Holy Spirit in you, right? Or it's not going to be the activity of the Holy Spirit. That choice is yours. Okay. Now, many times I've heard a specific voice, a verbal voice, especially in my early on days in this, right? Because specific voice in words is something I understand, and it wouldn't be helpful to me for the Holy Spirit to use a medium of communication that initially I didn't understand. Okay. But the guidance of the Holy Spirit is for the purpose of bringing about a holy instant in me so that I can witness within myself to what true communication actually is which is beyond words, which is without words. It occurs in the silence of my mind, right? In true communication, everything is known, right? The only thing to know is what yourself is. That's it. All the meetings that you seem to have with other people, cigarette, whatever, and in business interests and that, all of those things are nothing but catalysts to take you deeper into an experience of yourself, okay, through the relinquishment of the temporal association that you have with them in the cause and effect relationship that seems to be playing out. All right. So you're having a cigarette with some guy and there's a business arrangement, whatever, you get excited about that because he's interested in your business arrangement. But that's the story. That's what's on the surface, right? The Holy Spirit is the whole reason you actually came together for a higher purpose than all of that stuff together, but it includes that. Okay. That's the doorway. You're being presented, there's you and some guy with a cigarette. You're being presented with an opportunity, a doorway to enter into a communicative moment with that brother. All right. Your ego is going to see it as an opportunity to enter into a business arrangement or a whatever. But if you're vigilant for the Holy Spirit as having an abiding purpose in you in everything, you'll be aware of that and you'll allow the Holy Spirit's guidance in that moment to take predominance over your own ignorance or over your own desire to rush in and offer a business opportunity or whatever. Okay. And you'll know the difference. There's a stepping back. There's a kind of a deferral. It's like in everything now, this is just kind of becoming automatic in me, and like it really is, where I will meet someone and even if I forget that it's a holy encounter for a second, something always occurs within the framework of that because I've been studying the course and applying it and blah, 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 that jigs my memory. And I automatically find myself stepping back from first voice engagement, right? Because the ego always speaks first, and allowing something else to occur in that meeting that's going to show me the true nature of the reason that we're together. Now, it doesn't always have to look like trumpets from the sky and angels and light things going on. Sometimes it's just this tiny little joining, like in the temple with the monk, where we had a recognition that we understood each other, even though we had no language, and that we were able to communicate, and something else came out of that. Okay. The situation that you're going to find yourself in is having moment after moment after moment, or opportunity after opportunity after opportunity presented through whatever relationships are available to you, business ones, personal ones, whatever, to go beyond the physical nature of what they seem to represent to the purpose that underlies the reason that you come together in those things in the first place. Does that make sense? Now,
yeah.
Whether or not you get a business arrangement out of that or not doesn't matter. All right. The ego is going to always be, well, if I suddenly, if I give this to the Holy Spirit, maybe I'll lose my business deal. Maybe I should just try and control it. You know, it's like you try to white knuckle everything and control everything. It's like at some point you got to realize that doesn't work. Right. At some point, I just want God. I don't care about my business. If I'm meant to have a business, I'll have a business. If I don't have a business, I don't have a business. I'm not concerned one way or the other, good or bad, right? My purpose is the joining. My purpose is this moment, this holy instant, because in that, my salvation is offered. Yeah, in that, my liberation, right? Get it?
I wanted to say that, like, it's funny that you mentioned that, because one time while I was praying, I asked very firmly, like actual inquisition, who am I and what am I here for? And the main response I got after just sitting there was, you're here to be yourself truly, 100% unapologetically. That's the lesson I got. You know, so it's funny you're saying
right.
this.
No, it's not funny I'm saying that. That's exactly why you are here. The funny thing is when we think there's something other reason that we're there. That's fun, you know. It's like the tiny little ant trying to move the rubber plant. It's like impossible. You can't do it. You got to realize that you can't do it and that you have to leave it up to God. So it's like, I'll just be the ant and the rubber plant can be the rubber plant, and we'll leave it at that.
Cool. Thank you for answering my. Just if I have just one more question, is that okay with you?
Yeah, sure.
I'm guessing that the answer to my question is to just listen more and trust more, but the question itself is, how do you kind of overcome that denial? I think you'll say that to do the course, but I don't know if, because I asked the Holy Spirit, I asked God when I was praying, should I do the course right now? And I feel like I got an answer to just do some meetings and just do what I tell you to do. So how would you sort of stomp out that denial if you were in my place?
You can't stop it. Right?
Okay.
You are what the denial is. You sitting there asking me that question, how do I do this? That's what denial is. Right? You're trying to work out how to stop denial with the same mind that's manifesting the idea in the first place.
Okay.
It's like it's catch-22. Damned if you don't. Right?
Okay.
You're a miracle. Now, whether you do a Course in Miracles or not, I don't care. A Course in Miracles is simply a medium whereby it's made reasonable to you why you would want to defer all your decision-making to God, right? But before the Course came into my life, all I had was prayer. I didn't know about a Course. I didn't even know it existed. I had a bunch of books. I had some of the Gitas. I had, what's the Buddhist one, the Dharma Pasala or whatever the hell it is. I can't remember. And I had something else, all these books. And I knew a bit of each of them and whatever. But because of that, I didn't have a structured course, but I knew they were all sort of saying the same thing. And I knew that I knew it in my heart, right? And something in me was telling me that where it was in my heart was the important thing, not how it was that I got the information to tell me that in the first place. The Course is incredible, right? It saves time, right? There are many paths to God. Each of them is going to be individual to whoever it is that's walking upon it, obviously. But the Course has been brought into the world to save time, to collapse the time it takes between cause and effect, the alpha and the omega, so that you can have an experience of your truth now. Until you have that experience, then the experience of your truth or the experience of yourself as you know yourself is always going to be associative. It's always going to be based on the identity of things that you've gleaned from the past and are attempting to carry with you as some worthy principles and things perhaps into the future, but they're never going to be your true self, which is why you need an experience. The Course collapses the time so that you can have an experience. All right. Now, I think it's the Dalai Lama who said he's not coming back in his next incarnation recently. He's 14 or 15 incarnations, whatever he's up to now. And he's not interested in coming back anymore, because finally he's seen that it doesn't really do anyone any good, right? He just becomes an idol and people make an idol out of him, and a whole structure of religiosity is bound up around him that doesn't do him any good, doesn't do his people any good. And his own individual personal journey has become something that has kind of come to an end, right? He's seen it, finally, he's seen it. It's taken him 14 or 15 lifetimes for him to see that end point, right? The Course in Miracles is offering you that end point right here and now. You're done. There's no point you going out starting a business. There's no point you going out having another relationship. There's no point to any of it, right? I can tell you that till I'm blue in the face, but you're not going to hear it until you're done with it yourself, okay? So learning how to listen to that voice, the Holy Spirit's curriculum in you is individual and personal, and it's like this kind of evolving, Jesus calls it a slowly evolving training program, where you have this gentle awakening, and gentle is a bit of an understatement, but where you have this gentle awakening to bring you to the point where you realize you don't actually have anything else going for you. Salvation is all there is, because you're literally living in the resurrection. All right. prior to the ascension, I mean, you got Enoch, right? So Enoch's the other guy in the Bible who didn't die, but that's all that it says about him. It just says Enoch lived to 1,000 years or whatever it was, and he didn't die, right? Jesus, we've got a bit more information. He went through this whole thing and like, you know, look, put your fingers in my palms, Thomas, and you'll, you know, and went through the ascension process and everything. So we have this in our mind as a reference point for the idea that maybe death isn't the end of life, right? Now, if that sits in my mind as my highest point of human reference, right? Because prior to that, all I'd ever believed is that everything dies, right? But I have this reference point now. I don't know whether to believe it, not to believe it. I wasn't there at the time. I didn't see it. I didn't put my own fingers in those holes in his hands, all of this sort of stuff. But it doesn't mean that it hasn't happened or didn't happen. All it means is that I'm not aware of that happening in my own consciousness. But through the process of healing, as I align with the Christ mind or the Buddha mind in me, the experiences that are required in my own temporal frame of reference to bring me to an understanding of the truth of that is going to occur. Right? If it doesn't, get off the track you're on and try something else, right? So if A Course in Miracles is not for you, do whatever it is that your heart tells you is for you, right? I'm telling you it is for you because it can only be a lack of willingness that, you know, for change that is going to deny you that being for you in the first place. Does that make sense? So Jesus says this is a required course, right? Everyone must come to know that there is no world. Now, if there is no world, what the hell are you doing? Look at everything backdropped off that, right? If there is no world, this is an ascended mind, channeled this book through. It's like any enlightened mind will tell you the same thing, all right? Buddha will tell you the same thing. The external world is simply a manifestation of a framework for your own ideas about yourself. It doesn't exist as reality. It's the Maya, the illusion, the great dream, right? If that's the case, don't you want to wake up? All right. Now, if you want to wake up, why would you want to take 100 lifetimes to do that? Let's just wake up. Let's just get the hell out of here because I see what this place is like. Got it? I see what's on offer here. Even if I'm the head of Microsoft, even if I'm the head of a massive corporation, I've got everything I ever wanted, women, possessions, money, travel, whatever. I'm still dead, right? The best thing about anything here is still just lipstick on a skeleton, right? So why wouldn't I be about an express ticket out of here, right? The days are gone where I have to study the entire library of the Upanishad. The days are gone where I have to sit at the feet of a master for 40 years before I'm worthy to become whatever it is initiate to that particular pathway. The days are gone where the guru or the teacher of wisdom would be the only one and everyone else is sort of have to give up their life to sort of be about that. That's done. Those days are way behind. I'm the last one of those arseholes left, right? And I mean that literally. We're all here individually awakening to an idea that we are not individual, to an idea that we actually are one. And we're just people. Like I'm a tattoo artist and you're a baker and you're a tire fitter and you're a mechanic. We're not people that are suddenly sitting in a temple or a mosque or a mountaintop devoting our lives to something. We're people that now have this whole new technology where we can see that when we're upset by anything, it's because we've taken our finger off our own nose and we've forgotten that it's just a dream and that we can forgive and we can let go. And collectively, and I don't like the word collectively because it implies many, but we'll use it for a second. Collectively, we're raising up together, right? Now, if you can see that my brother's happiness and my happiness are not separated by our interests, right? That's our own mutual interest. Why wouldn't I want my brother to be as happy as he can possibly be, right? Without me determining what reasons that should be under. I just want him to be happy. I just want all my brothers to be happy. I want for no reason whatsoever, right? Now, if my own awakening is the guarantee of that, let me be about it as quickly as I can, right? Because in that, I'm withdrawing my projections, my denial, and everything else that I've previously placed out there, forcing my brother to me to play the part of aggressor or victim or whatever it is role that I've given them to play, instead of allowing them to be the Christ or the Buddha or the Krishna mind. You know, it's like you really have to see it. You really have to see your total responsibility. I have this big thing out, big poster out there, and I stole it off the meditation center wall when it closed. It's like a quote from the Course. I'm responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience, and I decide upon the goal I achieve. And everything that happens to me as I've asked, and I'm getting the results of my own thinking, right? It's pretty much along those lines. When you can see that, right? It's like it's one of those moments where the penny drops and you're like, holy cow. Now what am I going to do with that? I'm responsible for the world. I'm responsible for all the suffering in the world, because I'm still insisting on perpetuating a belief system and a thought system in my mind that gives suffering a validating place in my life. You know, and whilst I value it, I continue to project it out there, and someone else has to play that part. Why would I want to do that? I'm an arsehole, but I'm not that much of an arsehole.
Is it possible you can probably, maybe, hopefully, you can elaborate on the, like, your brother's, I think that's what you said, maybe misinterpreted it, but your brother's happiness is dependent on your awakening. So therefore, why would you waste time on delaying your awakening?
Right, exactly. I'm not separate from my brother.
Uh-huh.
Okay, it's that simple. I'm not separate from what I think I see. If I see suffering, it's because suffering still exists as an idea in my mind that I'm hanging on to, right? There's no suffering in God, right? I perpetuate the idea of separation in my mind through the maintenance of conceptual ideas, right? Conceptual ideas. There's got to be like a frame of reference and, you know, a cause and an effect, right? If God is all cause in my mind, then the extension of God has to be the effect. And then therefore, as above, so below, my mind is God mind creating on earth as it is in heaven, right? Either that, or it's God mind in denial of itself, which is completely insane. And I'm projecting out onto a situation, something that actually doesn't exist, and keeping it real to me. If I'm keeping it real to me, that means you have to play the part of the guy that doesn't understand and wants to ask questions. I'm telling you, hang on a minute. I've had an experience of something that shows me that all of this is nothing but a load of rubbish. Let's just stop playing these parts for each other, right? I'm going to accept atonement for myself and keep my finger here. And I'm offering you, put down that old script I gave you and allow Jesus to offer you the new script right here and now, which is going to save you the time of having to play out those lines again and again. Okay. It's like a divine, you know, Dante's, the divine pantomime or whatever it is. So it's like I'm the script, let's call it Romeo and Juliet, and I'm Romeo and you're Juliet. And Romeo all of a sudden realizes that, hang on a minute, we've been doing this again and again and again since time began, this whole thing dying at the end of it. I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do instead, because that's all I know, but I know that I'm just not going to do that. I exit the stage. I walk off stage left. All of a sudden you're there with your script and you're going, Romeo, and you get no answer, right? All of a sudden you're in, what do they call that when you make it up, when you're an actor and you make it up?
Improv,
right? All of a sudden you're an improv. Now, it's your choice. You're going to either try to save the script of Romeo and Juliet, or you're just going to walk off too. Right? I'm telling you, just walk off with me. We're done. We don't need, we give up the world, follow me, we're out of here. And you're like, what about the script? What about all these other people that have got parts to play? And it's like, well, they're going to come onto the stage, realize we're not there, and they're not going to know what to do either. And then they're going to have to make a choice, right? Jesus offered me the ability to make a choice. I walked off the stage with him, and now temporarily I'm back on the stage for a second, being the antagonist or the devil's advocate or whatever you want to call it, telling you, hey man, the script doesn't work. That script, that old Romeo and Juliet script, no matter which way you want to flip flop it around, it doesn't work. Get off the stage. Let's go home. Right? And you're going to be like, let me just think about that for a second. Right? There's literally nothing to think about because there's nothing else going on. You don't have a choice.
Got it. So like when you allow yourself to stop listening to your script, you show your representation to your brother that he doesn't have to play his
You're
script.
liberating everyone.
Oh, I see it now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate
You
that.
shine your light and everyone else will be just looking at you going, what the hell's that guy so happy about? I want what he's got.
Yeah. Thank you. That really helps.
And eventually you'll be so sick and tired of your own suffering, you'll do anything to walk off the stage. Right? It doesn't mean that you won't keep looking back at the other actors and, you know, like, sorry about this, but whoop, exit stage, you know. You're gonna want to look back many times, right? There's gonna be, the ego's gonna offer you, dangle a carrot and go, just come back on the stage. We'll give you a pay rise, you know, we'll make you the lead. All of these things are gonna go on in your own ideas of yourself, in your own particular frame of reference with the relationships that you're in. But the purpose of all your relationships is to make them holy. Okay? If you're only interested in the outcome of what appears on the conscious level, my business arrangement with this cigarette guy or whatever, you're going to miss the opportunity to enlighten that situation, that relationship, and make it holy, even though the Holy Spirit's in the back of your mind. They're going, come on, we got this, we'll do it for you. Just walk off the stage, we'll say the lines, what we want to say, and then you can do your bit then, right? And you'll recognize, right, so where we're talking about sometimes you'll hear the voice as a verbal voice. Sometimes, right? And this has happened a lot for me, and it always throws me for a six. But sometimes it's as if somebody just pushes my mind out of my brain out of my body, and someone else takes over for a second and says something. Right? Now, you can call that channeling, or you can call that whatever. I don't know. When that occurs, I have no clue what's said. Right? And if you're talking to Annie, Annie has many, many moments of that. And Ted used to have it all the time. He'd sit there and he'd talk for hours, right, in session. And then he'd get to the end and, you know, like he'd be like, what did I say? Was there anything good in that? He literally had no clue what he said, because it's like he's given the Holy Spirit permission to use his body, his heart, his soul, his mind for the purpose of healing, whatever that looks like, even if it means pushing him out of the way for a second so that the message can get through. Right? And you'll notice if you like writing and stuff, you'll notice sometimes when you try to write something like spiritual poetry, all of a sudden you'll be like thinking, what do I write? What? And then all of a sudden it starts to flow. It's like the Holy Spirit kicks in, right? There's nothing that isn't the activity of the Holy Spirit, including you getting out of the way. Right? It's like I've invited the guest in. I've invited the Holy Spirit in. Everything from that point of invitation is the activity of that invitation, even if it means that the Dave or the identity or the avatar or whatever has to become less so that the Holy Spirit can become more. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And also it makes
the
me feel
identity,
better.
you're going to miss the opportunity, right? But in salvation, literally nothing is lost. It's like so many opportunities to choose again have been presented to me, and I've chosen for God in, well, as many as I can, but so many have been presented again and again and again. And you look at things and you're like, oh my God, now I'm looking at this. I see that I have to give up the meaning that I've given to this. And it's like, but I really like this. What's it going to look like when I give up that meaning? Am I going to feel empty again? Because all of these things that I've acquired for myself and all these definitions that I've given everything provide me with a certain sense of fulfillment, right? It's a false sense of fulfillment. And the trepidation is that if I give it to the Holy Spirit, I'm going to feel that loss again, where it was before that I had to forge ahead and find my own sense of fulfillment in the first place, right? Don't adjust to that loss, right? You'll discover that it's not actually a loss if your choice for perfect inner peace is actually what you're about. You'll soon be shown if it's not what you're actually about, and you'll be given an opportunity to choose again. It'll just be obvious, right? It's like, oh, I must not want inner peace because I've let go of all these meanings and now I feel agitated, right? That agitation isn't bad. It just shows you that you're not really on par with the idea of wanting inner peace totally. There's still something in the world you want, still some validation or you know, it's like, be about that. Get it out of your system or give it to God, one or the other. You know, but it's like everything has healing as its purpose, and therefore that's the only purpose it has. You can stamp your fist and stamp your foot and argue and what about this and what about that, right? But healing can look like anything, and whatever it is to you, it is to you. What I tell you it is immaterial. You'll recognize it in you as an idea of, oh, I get it, right? Or as an idea of, oh, that makes sense, or something reasonable, something that restores you back to sanity, even if it only seems to be just a little bit, or, you know, a little deviation from the path that you were on, headed to destruction, a tiny little adjustment in the trajectory, and you'll be back in heaven, right? It doesn't have to look like massive trumpets from the sky and harps and angels and stuff like that, all right? Hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit can be as simple as someone telling you to shut up, or someone sending you a thing with dickhead written on it, right? Everything's always showing you where you're at. It's like, am I offended? No, of course not. I've already accepted that. Doesn't mean, because I accept salvation for myself, doesn't mean that the world's going to suddenly change and be a place where people send me memes of myself with "you're a great guy" written across it. The world's always going to be what it is, right? Why would I expect to be treated any differently? Jesus says, don't expect them to treat you any better than they treated me, right? Nobody wants to hear this message. You don't want to hear this message. I don't want to hear this message. There is no world. That's
hey, Dave.
Hey.
Scott wants to hear something. Scott has a question.
Where is he?
He's got his hand up forever.
Oh, really? Oh, he does. He's got a yellow hand against the yellow background. Sorry, man.
Can you squeeze him in?
Go for it.
Right on. Yeah. Scott, you're muted. You good?
I know we both did it at the same time.
Oh, sorry.
I love your hat, Dave.
Oh, thanks. My wife made this for me.
Nice. Can you get her to make me one?
You can have this one. It's a little big for me.
Ah, sweet. Your head looks a little bigger than mine, though.
Oh, man, I have a pumpkin for a head. It's ridiculous.
I can see that. Hey,
when I go for a long walk, I have to put 2 sticks to hold it up. It's just like...
So look, you've already answered a lot of what I was going to bring, but I'm hoping that you'll go ahead and indulge me anyways.
Go for it. Let's have a good old-fashioned indulgence.
Let's do. All right, so
let's do.
Here's what it is. First time I had a revelation experience where the presence of the Holy Spirit virtually engulfed me was when I was 12 years old. I was 12 years old and I was flipping through this Bible, and I got so inspired that the next thing I know, a light comes down through the ceiling, this ghostly light, if you will, and surrounds me, and I'm in the presence of the Holy Spirit, right?
Right.
Okay. So, and I'm going to give you the quick version of this. I've been having revelation experiences since 12, and I'm now 62. All right.
Right.
But, and this is the part that you answered. Okay. I've been physically ill every day for the last 32 years, ever since I was 30. Okay. And, you know, I can get myself so enraged and frustrated over that, you know, I'll turn to Jesus and call him every freaking name in the book, because I don't understand what the hell's going on. Okay. So let me keep going. yeah, I've had physical illness every day for 30 years. And there were 2 years where I had like 8 or 10 symptoms a day. And it was so bad that I put myself through electroshock therapy to try and jolt it loose out of my brain. I was that desperate.
Right.
And anyways, you know, I came into the meeting tonight feeling like shit. But okay, so 2.5 years ago, I was living in Arizona then, and I go on this retreat. And this guy named Simon Tim Christopher, who was with Master Teacher for 17 years as the leader of that retreat.
Yeah.
And it was for 9 days. And man, I mean, it was 9 days of revelation, miracles, wild meditations, wormholes, everything that Master Teacher talks about, I was experiencing during that 9 days.
Good.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I decided, all right, man, I'm going to give everything I own away and go follow this guy. And I went over to Spain and to England, and I hung out with them for 4 or 5 months until I was finally chased out by COVID, right? And the experiences just got continued and magnified the whole time.
Right.
So then 2 years ago, I get back and I moved to Oregon. And I mean, the experiences, I was still able to tap into 5 of them regularly. And the one that was the most frightening to me was the experience of myself as the Christ or as my soul, where, I mean, I could go into the details of it, but it was kind of spooky. But long story short, over the last 2 years, these experiences, I mean, that I was able to hold on to have gradually disappeared until what I have left is just my daily interaction and presence and calling upon the Holy Spirit. Okay. All of the rest of the real fancy, I mean, the real world vision, all of it that the Course talks about, I was experiencing it. But where I've slid into fear lately is that, I mean, I had myself convinced until I just heard what you said, that I've completely come off the rails and come off track, because the sickness hasn't stopped. And now there's this barrage of thoughts in my head: lust, anti-Semitism, racism. And none of this stuff is me, but it's like a freaking plague in there. And that's also part of the evidence that I'm telling myself, is that I've fallen off a cliff. I had all this going and now it's all gone, and it's because of something I've done. And then the same thing goes with the sickness. I'm responsible for it, but I've already decided that it's a bad thing and I can't get rid of it. And then, I go to Jesus and say, what the fuck am I doing wrong? With a pissy attitude. So here it is. I mean, now this guy's leading another retreat down in Arizona in 2 months, and I'm going because I'm guided to go back there. So, but the whole thing, I mean, the thing that I needed to hear more than anything was that, I invited the Holy Spirit in 50 years ago. So everything that has happened has been for my healing somehow.
Right.
I can't freaking figure it out, but somehow even the sickness has been for my healing, and even the hardest parts of it. And I have no answer, no solution to any of it, but I thought I would present it to you. There it is, man.
It's pretty simple, really.
Uh-huh.
You're in denial.
Oh, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Right. That's exactly all it can be. Right. It can't possibly be anything else. It doesn't matter whether you have experience, like the revelations and everything, they matter. All that stuff kind of matters, right? It opens the mind to the limitless scope of your true nature, right? Which is what it's designed to do. All right. Now, one of the things you said to me just then was, I could hang on to 5 of those experiences or something like that. Okay. You're living in the past. The Holy Spirit is only present now. right? All of those experiences and attempting to recreate them is the activity of the ego, right? You have an experience of revelation. You have an experience of a divine occurrence in your consciousness. It's already finished. It's already done what it needed to do. And you're already in a whole new frame of reference for yourself beyond that. Okay. So attempting to reanimate or reconfigure those experiences becomes ritualistic in your experience of yourself, and you take yourself automatically out of the flow of your own healing. All right. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you just said to me, this guy's got another workshop in 2 months, right? I guarantee you've already got an idea of what you think is going to occur at that workshop because you've got a frame of reference you're using from the past. Otherwise, you wouldn't be thinking about wanting to go again in 2 months' time, which is in the future. Got it?
Yes and no.
All right. So you're using past and future references to try and work out what it is you think you are. I'm telling you, let go of those past ideas. They've already done their job. The healing already occurred. Whatever was meant to occur back then, it's already occurred. You're trying to hang on to it as a way of validating what it is you think that you're about in your own process here and now, and looking towards the future as maybe a possible solution to the problem you find trying to do that. Right? You've got to let go. Let go of the past, including your spiritual past. All the experiences that happened. It's like I've had so many revelations and things occur to me. I'm not trying to recreate them, hang on to them, whatever. They're useful to a certain degree as points of reference, as stories to help explain the transition that you guys might be able to relate to in your own thing as you go through your own stuff. But for me, they're meaningless now. They have no meaning whatsoever. They've done whatever they did back then 25 years ago and or 3 years ago or whatever ago. And now I'm in this moment where I don't know what it's meant to look like. I don't know if there's a revelation around the corner. I'm not looking to the future to try and decide what I think my own best interests are going to be there. I'm not activating the past, anticipating the future, and I'm not trying to orchestrate what I think now ought to look like. Looks like what it looks like. It looks like this. This is the only moment healing can occur. This moment, not in 2 months at another workshop, right? My enlightenment, my salvation, my whatever is being held out to me and offered to me unequivocally and without reservation now. And you're going to accept it now, or you're going to go back into that thinking that your thoughts actually mean something about going to a workshop with some guy because you went to a workshop with some guy and all of this stuff that happened, right? All of that stuff that happened just shows you that you have no clue, basically, right? Something occurred out of sequence in your own consciousness that showed you there's more to the picture than meets the eye. And you're like, wow, that was incredible. There was things appearing and disappearing and lights and portals and all of this sort of stuff. That's what's meant to occur. Not so that you can try and maintain that as a framework reference for your own experience of yourself here on earth, but so you can stay in the flow of keeping an open mind to the fact that I have no clue what life's about. I'm not trying to hold myself accountable to something that happened in the past by trying to recreate it in the future or have an experience because I think that my salvation depends upon hooking up with this guy again who offered me all this stuff, right? That stuff, all of that revelation, all of that holiness, all of that, everything that occurred for you in those moments occurred to you through an interaction with the greengrocer at your local corner store. Okay? It happens miraculously. The reason that you get sick is because you have all this incredible energy. You have all this incredible revelatory thing goes on that supercharges your ego. Right? Which it does. Your ego will take that and go, wow, this happened to me, and make it into a story. Exactly the same as I do. But I'm not attached to my story. I know that none of it's true. There's no such thing as an enlightened mind, right? That's as much an illusion as a non-enlightened mind. It doesn't matter, right? But for the frame of reference I find myself in, it's my own personal frame of reference that tells me for a second that something is going on in my mind that is out of accord with what I thought life, death, and the universe was about, right? What it's going to look like in this moment, I don't know. What should it look like tomorrow? I don't know. I don't care. Do I have an idea about what I think my own best interests are in the thing? Do I think my guidance is going to be future-based? Of course not. True guidance always takes me within here and now. Right? The Holy Spirit's not saying to you, I'm going to give you guidance that you can use in 2 months' time.
Well, all right. So the reason that I responded with yes and no is that, right. If I'm in my head and I'm in fear and I'm doing the past future thing and trying to decide for myself that it's in my best interest that I go, I understand that that's all coming from my ego. However,
Right.
at the same time, my guidance is telling me to go, and it may be for an entirely different reason than what my ego imagines.
It's not for an entirely different reason. You just said to me, you understand that's coming from your ego, right?
No.
Ready. Let me just go back. You just said to me, I understand that all of that's coming from my ego. And then you said, but my guidance is telling me to go, right?
Okay. So when I tap into what the Holy Spirit tells me to do, which is register for this upcoming workshop, the answer is yes. So I'm disregarding the expectations that my ego has around it and just going with the simple yes as an answer. And that's why I'm going with no expectation as to what's going to happen. I've dropped that. But, I flip back and forth between wanting it through my ego or just listening to the voice of the Holy Spirit that says, yes, go, and just drop it. So she's telling me to go.
All right, well, go. You'll get the results of thinking, and that's how you'll learn.
That's possible. Oh, okay, but see,
I'm telling you that God is here and now, not in the.
Know. Yeah.
All right. No, you don't know.
Okay.
You don't, or you wouldn't have the question. You wouldn't have the situation showing up that you're asking me about. Okay, that's where you have to sit. God's not in the future. That experience of your enlightenment is only going to occur now. And the only thing that has to occur in your mind, because it did, is the enlightenment of your mind, the memory of God in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is an illusion, a deception, which is what I'm saying about the highest thing that the ego can attain is the identity of spiritual something or other. My God, you know how many people I have tell me my guidance is this, my guidance is that. I'm not going to tell you not to listen to that guidance, but I'm going to tell you that you're going to get the results of listening to that guidance. And if it's based in the past or the future, it's always going to lead you to more guidance based in the past or the future. Okay? Because the only guidance that takes you within, which is in the here and the now, has nothing else to offer after that's accomplished.
Okay.
5 years ago, or whatever you said, when you started having those revelations, all right, you already went beyond where it is you think you're at now. But you find yourself back in time and space looking at the idea of what remains of your journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And none of it's true. All you need to do is apply the idea that there is no world to everything that you think is going on for you as far as going to workshops and doing whatever in your guide. All of that doesn't mean anything, including the idea that you think it's guidance. Ready? I'm going to offer it to you this way. Here's love in the universe.
So there's no such thing as guidance.
Ready? Look, ready? We'll do it again. Here's all the love in the universe. Now stay there. Stay right there. Don't go to the next question, the next thing you want to say. Don't go to the next anything. Stay there. Here's all the love in the universe. Stay there. Everything else is a deception. Everything. Here and now. Here and now is everything held out to you. The entirety of the kingdom of heaven. Here and now. It doesn't take time. It simply takes a little willingness to say yes. I don't care if you go to a workshop. I'd love to go along with you. It'd be awesome. I'm sure we'd have a great time. But I'm not going to go along with you at the expense of overlooking this moment here and now and saying yes to God. All right. Stay. Doug's there. Look at Doug. Doug's totally there. He's feeling it. He's totally there. Right? Don't adjust to it, and you're going to explode out the other side in light before you went in. You're going to have this total revelatory moment that's going to be beyond anything that's kind of been categorized by you as past revelatory experiences or possible future revelatory experiences. You'll have everything beyond revelation. You'll have the truth. Ready? Here. Oh. It's like there, stay there. Michelle knows exactly where we're at. Stay there. All right? Don't adjust to your pain, spiritual or otherwise. Every conceptual analogy of anything that you want to offer beyond that is what pain is. All temporal association is the manifestation of an idea of separation, including your best thinking on a spiritual level. It's still nothing. All of those revelations and experiences, like everybody should be having them. Like if you're doing the course properly, you should be having all sorts of weird shit happening. All of that stuff should fall away quickly and early to get you into the integrated core of your own mind training, to the integrated core of your own discipline, so that you can become self-activated, right? But it's like you need these experiences, these revelations and things to happen along the way. Otherwise, you'd have no clue what it is you're trying to get towards. It's like Jesus says in the course, revelation will show you the truth, but the means needed to reach it, right? Now, the means are only applicable in the here and the now. I can't apply the means tomorrow in my thinking about tomorrow or draw it from the past so that it's useful to me here and now. The means is my willingness to forgive myself of everything I think about anything. Come with wholly empty hands under my God in this moment. That's a choice. That's a decision I make, right? I draw my circle. I step into it. Here I am, Lord, which we're going to do in a minute. Here I am, Lord. Here and now. All right. Now, the problem that you have with that, having had many revelations such as I have, it's always nice to think that maybe something's going to occur to bolster that and to boost that and to show you something else. Right. Yep. But remember, the goal of the course is perfect inner peace. Those revelations and phenomena and things. I was walking one day from the healing center. You had to go outside to go to the toilet. And for some reason, I looked up and there was this orange geohexagonal kind of tube that was glowing, luminously glowing directly above my head that followed me to the toilet. And I knew that if I put my hands up, I would be sucked up into that tube, right? And I didn't do it because I knew it was just
shit I'm talking about, by the way.
Right,
that's
exactly.
The kind of stuff,
right?
That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I know that you know exactly where I'm at with these things, right? So I've seen things appear, disappear. The whole world's done the big wobble and like everything, and all of a sudden, like things change, the street scene changes out, and like whatever you can imagine, it's like that's where it's at. But it's still going on in my own consciousness. Right? The experience of the divine illumination of the mind occurs outside of that in its entirety, because there is no world And whatever it is I think I am, registering these ideas of revelation and divine things happening is occurring to me within the framework of a reference that I have of my temporal self, not my divine self, which occurs or is reinstored to me outside of that reference altogether, right? By the grace of God, by the way, not all I need to do is accept it. Ready? There it is. It's like it's held out each and every moment, each and every moment. God calls upon my forgiveness to save me. It's like, give up the world and follow me. Well, let me just think about that, Jesus. There might be a workshop coming up in a couple of months, you know, it's like, I know you can hear that, all right? I'm not telling you don't go to the workshop. I'm just telling you it's not about the workshop. It's got nothing to do with it. It's about you. You already have everything. It's all within you. It's totally, it's there. That idea that I'm sick or that I'm whatever, that's temporal. That's not you, right? Let it be you for a second so you can undergo the transitionary experience in your own mind, which those revelations and things that have occurred to you have shown you is entirely possible, right? It's like Jesus shows you this whole snapshot of something outside of your frame of reference by all these experiences and goes, here's all of this stuff. Now use this as witness to apply the principles of this teaching to bring about an occurrence in your mind that so you can transcend it in its entirety. Okay.
That's
where we're at.
Okay. And that's what I do on a daily basis. And this goes back to the question that came up earlier, is my mind training these days is really focused on one thing. I ask the Holy Spirit to remind me to call on the Holy Spirit in any encounter with a brother and every encounter. And then I do. Somebody will start, I'll walk in someplace or somebody will approach me, and instead of that yapping, I say, Holy Spirit, please take over. And by God, it happens. And so that's where I am. That's where I am on a daily basis now. And for what I'm hearing you say is that's where I belong. Right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ready? Forget the daily basis.
Okay. Yep.
Forget the daily basis. Ready? Here.
Concepts. Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do this in time. You cannot do this in time. Even couched under spiritual terms, the ego will attempt to put this into a time frame reference. You cannot do it that way.
Yep.
It's like you're approaching the edge of the cliff, but you're not quite jumping. You know, the ego loves to get right to the edge and peek over, but not take that final step. It'll get as spiritual as hell. The ego will get as spiritual as hell and give you all this beautiful stuff. And this happened to me, that happened to me. I'm on a daily basis. All of these time ideas, right? All I'm ever telling you is I can't meet you there. We can't join in any of those ideas, in any of that thinking. We've got to let go of that entirely. And our revelations that we have and our teachings that we have is our reasonability for why we would want to do that. So when we step into our healing circle, we're letting go of everything. We're letting go of even what we think a healing circle is for. Here I am, Lord, I have no freaking clue about anything. And that's how I like it. I'm going to let God be God and me be me. And then, you know. Hey, Lisa, what's going on with you there? You're very quiet, I've noticed. We also got Kevin. Kevin's absorbing it all. Heidi, Anna, Terry, Ida, Dear One's Room, Doug. Oh, Susan's disappeared again. Donna. So this is good. We're getting down to a nice. There she is. Let's have you. Are you laying down or something? Just like chilling out. I know this is boring stuff, right? It's true. No, it's real. It really is boring. The good
so
stuff
boring.
to our healing, but we need this. We need this kind of what do you call it? This
I was
framework
kidding, by the
seconds, so we.
I was kidding. I love everything you're saying. I mean, obviously it's from Holy Spirit, but I love the vibe of it. It's so deep. I love it.
Thank you.
But it's not, I know it has. What's the next step? You were telling the other person,
Scott?
the ego takes to the edge of the cliff, and then you.
Right.
That one. What do you exactly mean? Sorry for my ignorance.
All right. So this is. We'll get to our actual. We'll do a little light session in a second, but. So are you reading the course?
Yes, I'm doing the lessons.
Okay, good. So in the course, Jesus talks a lot about the veil, right?
Yes.
The veil of ignorance, whatever you want to call it, the veil that prevents you from realizing the higher nature of yourself. Okay.
Yes.
So what we're doing in our attempts, our efforts, our discipline, our determination, as far as healing goes, with our willingness, is to step right up to that veil, which is the limit of our consciousness. Now, Ramana Maharshi used to teach this as you need to ask, who is it that I am, or who is the questioner, right? And refuse to adjust to that. You sit there and you wait, okay? So in a sense, yeah, I don't like to put it in a framework of this is how you do it.
Yeah.
But I'm just use that as a kind of a reference loosely for a second, because it always ends up having to be miraculous. But a human being, let's say, and I'm just going to bracket this, right? Just tar us all with the same brush here for a second. A human being loves to live in a comfort zone. Okay. We don't like to be too much on the fringes because we're seen as black sheep or weirdos or whatever. And we don't like to go too much the other way because it's depressing and we get anxious and all that. We like to live in this kind of vibratory frequency where we feel like we're in control and everything's okay and whatever.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Jesus comes along and goes, fuck that, let's just have some fun. We'll tip you all out of the apple cart and you'll go whichever way, any way you are, and we'll pick you up where you land. All right. So when you start doing the course, you start doing these lessons and it's like nothing I see means anything, right? You spend your whole life thinking that what you see is something that has a meaning to you, right? Now, Jesus is saying nothing I see means anything. Lesson number one, you're like, what does that mean? What do you mean? What do you mean nothing I see means anything? Or I've given it all the meaning it has for me, or my thoughts see only the past, or all of these sorts of lessons. And all of a sudden you're thrown into disarray.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm telling you, don't adjust to your disarray. Okay. Let you be the one that doesn't know what he means by that, and let him be the one that does know what he means by that.
Okay.
And stay in that openness and you'll be able to have an experience. As soon as you try to reconstruct it in your mind and adjust to your pain, adjust to your confusion, adjust to whatever, you're trying to reinterpret on your own terms. You don't have any terms because you don't even know what the hell you are.
I am.
Right?
I know. Mm.
You kind of have to get, no, you don't know. I'm telling you, but you don't know. I know you don't.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd be the one here in the funny beanie and I'd be there go ask questions. So it's true. It's just how this works, you know.
I know.
I had an experience of disappearing completely out of time and space and seeing the whole world vanish. There is no world. Found myself in eternity, and then for some strange reason made an agreement to come back here to help Jesus teach this course and get it out into the world. And that looks like whatever it looks like in this moment. It looks like this Zoom meeting. But in the doing of that, also I'm collapsing my own association and holding myself in that unjumbling, unstructured kind of sense of allowance where anything can occur in the idea of healing. All right. And I'm offering that to you, and we're going to join in that, whether it looks like we laugh or cry or scream or vomit or whatever. It doesn't matter, but we don't step outside of the circle. Okay. We stay in our circle and we just hold ourselves in our, what would you call it? a penitent kind of state of mind where we are acknowledging that one of a lesser order goes before their creator, right? Jesus talks about it in the Course that way, I think, where you're equal in the sonship with everyone, but when you come before God, God is the greater, all right? So, and it's the same thing as like the tribes. It's like the 12 tribes of Israel, and it's like the 12 together form the one, right? The one is the sum total of those 12. Individually, the 12 have no power. It's only when they come together. So they come as their own individual selves to join with the one. I don't know if that makes sense, but we come into our circle, into our healing circle, and it's like, here I am, Lord. I'm willing to forgive myself for the world I think I made, so that I can have an experience of what my reality actually is. Okay? I'm willing to forgive myself of all things, including the idea that anything needs to be forgiven in the first place, right? But for a second, we use forgiveness as a kind of a bridge, as a kind of a transitioning application, because the void or from God is something that without some kind of a tool to be able to look at it and communicate with it and talk about it in, we'd never approach it, right? It's got to be reasonable for a second, right? The terror, that tiny moment of terror that we enter into when we go into that idea of healing and letting down our defenses, letting down our boundaries, our blocks, and all of that sort of stuff. If we didn't have some kind of reasonable reason why we would want to actually be about that, we would never be about that. Jesus is saying, just come on home. You don't have to worry about why you would want to be about that anymore. I've already done it for you, right? All you need to do is just take my hand. Yeah. So when we step into our healing circle, it's like, I'm willing to look at whatever it takes, right? So miracles are my right, but purification is necessary first, right? He says that in the miracle principles. Purification is your right because you're a child of God, but your mind has to be purified first. Otherwise, you're just going to corrupt whatever's given to you through the miracle. You're going to take it with your pointy little ego brain and turn it into something you think you can understand. You can't understand a miracle. That's why it is a miracle. Got it? If you think you can understand a miracle, that's not a miracle. I've had so many things happen to me. It's just like, holy cow, I have no clue how that happened. No clue what that means to me. No clue what that represents. But it wasn't anything to do with me. It had nothing to do with my own thinking. It was divinely given, divinely orchestrated. And whatever it's doing in here, in the back blocks of my mind, is about the healing of the Holy Spirit. I don't have to worry about what that is. I just have to trust that the Holy Spirit knows what that is, right? So it's like you have a moment of light experience, you have a moment of illumination. The ego tries to decide what to do with that. I don't need to know what to do with that. I know what it is perfectly well. It's communication between God and the created and the creator, you know? But what does that mean, says the ego? What does that mean? How do I use that? How do I get a better situation for myself using that light? That is the better situation. That is the entirety of what better situation for you is. Stop trying to decide what you think it ought to look like for the future or how you're going to use that now, and just be grateful.
Yeah.
You're being offered salvation. You're being offered everything. It's like, wow. It's like we're literally sitting in the departure terminal of time and space. Yeah. Right? We're going through a debriefing process. Right? I'm like, you know, when you go on an airplane and the hostess or the host will do, we have 2 exits over the wings and a thing will pop from the ceiling and they do that whole thing, right? That's what this is. We're getting ready. We're in this like Jesus kind of frame of reference. We're getting ready to say hasta la vista to time and space as an idea of about to have an experience that's being offered now. And this is the debrief, right? Don't adjust to the debrief. Pay attention to the, hey, we have 2 doors over the wing. Pay attention, give it full focus. It's going to be useful to you down the track. It'll make sense to you later on, even though it may not make sense to you completely now. Stop trying to work it out with ignorant mind now and just allow the fact that you're being debriefed to be okay. All right. Allow the fact that you're unlearning to be okay without trying to preempt what that unlearning is for or how it ought to look, all that sort of stuff. All right. So we're going to go into our healing circle. We're going to go into a moment of complete faith, complete unknowing what's about to occur, and allow that to be okay no matter what it looks like, because we're trusting for a second that the Holy Spirit's got our back. Either that or, you know, God failed, in which case let's just all go out and get drunk and whatever. You know, there's but that's where faith, you know, faith is its own reward. Let's just step in. All right, let me get this light out of my face here because I am the light. I'm just going to turn that down for a second. So
you'll stay, right, sis? Susan?
Huh?
Susan, you'll stay, right? You'll leave your camera right where it is, right? You won't go up to the ceiling.
Oh, maybe I'll pick on Susan. I don't know.
No,
Scott can pick on Susan. He's got something.
Yeah.
He's got something for her because she gave it to him to hold for her. Right. So here's the whole thing. My brother has a message for me. My brother has a gift for me always, because I'm so irresponsible with what God gave me. I had to give it to my brother so that at a certain point in time and space, before I entered in here, my brother could come to me and go, here, remember this? Here, have this.
Oh, always, since I was a tiny kid. Yeah, always.
Right.
Experiences all the time.
Right.
But mean anything, I know. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know why I said that. Adjusting.
Maybe. Only you can know that.